Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Malicious in there. Won't let me plant sunflowers? Fine. Story happened a couple of years ago, but it's my favorite lawyer story and I hope you enjoy. None of the following is legal advice. Don't take legal advice from randos on the internet. Client walks into the office and asks us for a contract review. He then hands over an HOA contract. Before slogging through a whole HOA contract, I asked him what he was hoping to accomplish. They want me to dig up my sunflowers. Your sunflowers? Yes, I planted a row of sunflowers outside my house. They pranced by and said that sunflowers are not allowed per the contract I signed. So I want you to tell me if that is true or not. Sir, before anything else, I need to tell you that this will likely be an hourly fee bill. Homeowner associations are notorious for dragging things out, so these could quickly become expensive sunflowers. I don't care. This is America and I should be able to plant sunflowers, god darn it. Still thinking he wasn't that serious about sunflowers, I asked for a 3-hour retainer. He immediately pulled out a checkbook and paid for 4 hours. So I buckled down to review the alleged anti-sunflower clause. Just for reference, the sunflowers he wanted to plant were really big, 5 feet, and all along the front of the house. It was a very substantial amount of sunflowers. The contract did indeed contain a clause with a very thorough list on which plants were and were not allowed to be planted. The list had just about every plant I could think of in alphabetical order. Think apple, banana, cauliflower, dill, sunflowers included. Corn was not included, which becomes very important later. Quick legal point, if you write "no dogs allowed," it is normally assumed that you are talking about all dogs generally. If you write "no labs, golden retrievers, or poodles allowed," it is normally assumed that all other dogs are allowed. Sometimes a not great attorney will write a super long list to pad hours, read "charge more," instead of just writing "no plants without prior approval" or something. I called the client back in for the bad news, and explaining the above legal point, I let him know that the HOA got a raw deal from whoever drafted the contract. No can do on the sunflowers, but if it makes you feel any better, they were probably overbilled by whoever wrote this contract. Pretty shoddy work too. They even forgot to write down corn, but they included nonsense like dragon fruit. So yes to corn, no to sunflowers? I didn't really check the contract for corn, but it's not prohibited in the plant section, so probably. Excellent, that'll work. I thought he was oddly happy with bad news. Then 2 or 3 weeks later, he came in with a picture of his house surrounded by huge sunflowers. What happened? This guy drove out to the country and bought obnoxiously large and ugly corn stalks. He promptly planted them where the sunflowers had been. When confronted by the HOA, he told them, paraphrasing, "To suck it, the contract lets me plant corn." Then, after some negotiation, he agreed to take the corn down in exchange for permission to plant sunflowers. Now we are friends, he is still a great client, and he lives surrounded by a ridiculous moat of sunflowers. If you had a chance to stick it to an HOA by planting a bunch of ugly corn around your house, would you do it? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Maleficide15. Manager refuses to acknowledge a light-duty note from my doctor, then proceeds to get publicly shamed by his boss. Worked at Walmart many years ago and had this shift manager that was just a tick to everyone, but a select few that he liked. One night I was scanning in overstocked drinks with a coworker as they were heavy cases and almost a full pallet. Shift manager comes by and says, "No, I can do it by myself, no excuse to have help with it." I then asked if I could at least move the electric pallet jack that was left blocking some of the empty shelves, but he said no as there were plenty of other ones which were above my head. Being young and dumb, I shrugged and started stacking these cases of Arizona tea gallons while trying to maneuver around this pallet jack and ended up messing up my lower and middle back and shoulder. Did the whole workers' comp and went to their ghetto clinic, and they just gave me some pain pills and told me to take it easy, giving me a note for light duty. When I came back and gave shift manager the light duty note, his solution was to have me stock produce, which involved moving around large boxes full of various things in the coolers to get what I needed, and a lot of bending and twisting. I told him that this was more strenuous than my typical work, so he told me, "If you don't want to do that, then I don't need you here, so just go home and come back when you can work." I said awesome, and took a nap in my car till 7 a.m. when the main store manager comes in. I went straight to her office and told her everything, and she immediately paged him to her office and then stood right there in the hallways and chewed him out so hard in front of everyone clocking in and out for many minutes. Dude looked like he was about to cry, and I had the biggest, stupidest smile watching him. After that, the dude wouldn't even look my direction, and if he ever needed something from me, he would send a shift lead to tell me instead. That lasted a few months till I finally quit that stupid job. I'm guessing the shift manager didn't know, but I'm sure the main store manager did know how much liability they were opening themselves up to by trying to make you do all that heavy lifting. That could have been really bad for the company, so the shift manager deserved to get chewed out in front of everybody like that. This next story is by Artilleryman08. Go ahead and put that punishment in writing. When I was a teenager, like many of my peers, I worked in a restaurant. I worked hard, and within a few months, I was a shift supervisor. I always worked closing, obviously because I was in school still. One day in class, my phone starts blowing up, call after call after call. It was my manager. I called back in the brief period between classes. He needed a supervisor to cover the midday, and I had to quickly tell him I was in school and couldn't be there. I went in for my normal shift that evening and was immediately pulled into the manager's office, where I was told that I had been unprofessional and that I would occasionally be expected to cover other shifts. Then I was told I would get a week suspension with no pay. I pointed out that I was in school, high school, but that didn't matter. Cue malicious compliance. Our company has a policy that certain punishments would be put on a written record, and the employee got a copy. I brought this up, and the manager was only too happy to oblige. On the form, I would get to explain my side and we would both sign it. I wrote that I was still in high school, and that's where I was when I refused to cover the shift. As soon as I left, I called the regional manager and explained what happened. I basically said that if I didn't get to work the next day, I'd be showing that paper to the Department of Labor. When I came in the next night, the store manager had been moved to another store, and we had a new one who was pretty cool. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why you get everything you can in writing or some kind of paper trail, even if it's email. Even if you don't have a concrete plan on what to do with whatever you have in writing, you never know when you could use it, how you could use it, or when it might come in handy later on down the road. It's always a great idea. This next story is by Kate7H. I do what TSA says. So this happened a couple years ago. I was flying to see a friend up north and was going through the scanners at the airport. I, of course, set off the scanner and they wanted to pat me down. So here's the problem. I had just broken my femur last week and was still very much messed up from it. I mean, I was on crutches and had about 30 staples in my leg. No crap, I set off the scanner. I was very much still in pain from this injury. The last thing I was going to do was let someone touch my leg 5 days after surgery. When I tell this to the TSA lady, she replies after an argument that I will have to take off my pants then. Guess what I did in the middle of security at a crowded airport? As soon as my belt got to my knees, this TSA officer started trying to usher me into a private room. But wait, my crutches were still in the X-ray machine. By this point, they were pretty embarrassed and were convinced I didn't have any contraband and let me go. I'll admit that decision may have been clouded by painkillers, but no one was gonna touch me that day. I guess it's really true that when you need to assert dominance, you just drop your trousers, apparently. That's what I've been told anyways. Our next story is by Profile Electronic. Want us to sit idle the entire day? Fine, then you pay heavily. The story about docking pay for being 15 minutes late reminds me of another story of HR overreach. For starters, I too work in a sector in India, and we have weird butt HR and middle managers. This happened 10 to 12 years ago. The city I was working in was facing severe water and electricity shortage. Consequently, the city decided that one day a week there would be no power supply to certain areas. This would continue for over 2 years. It began as a 3-month arrangement, but the city kept extending the duration. The company loathed to invest in generators that would ensure full-day work for over 100 users. Every Thursday there used to be a power cut from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. I suggested that we should declare Thursday as an official holiday and make Saturdays as working days. But this did not go down well with the powers that be. I was heading a team of 30 at the time. I told my team that they could take the day off and run whatever personal errands they had. But since Thursdays were working, we would change our shift time to begin from 6 p.m. This was a win-win situation for all, except HR. 4 to 5 weeks into the arrangement, I got called by HR that my team was not reporting on time. They insisted that everyone had to log in the morning. I put the situation to the team and they volunteered to come to the office, log in and leave for the day and return at 6 p.m. Works for me if they don't mind the extra drive. 3 weeks later, HR again has complaints. The team has to be physically present in the office at all times. This was taking things to ridiculous levels. Without power, we couldn't work, and it makes no sense to sit idle one day a week. We decided that this would be our fun and games day. Nope, that doesn't work either. As per HR, I am still supposed to hold seminars, presentations, and training sessions. All this while we are still working from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. HR is aware of it. Cue malicious compliance. We decide that we will go full compliance and take advantage of all company facilities and rules. On Thursdays, the entire team stopped getting their personal vehicles. We decided to use the company pick and drop facility. This was way before Uber. For most people, it meant hiring private taxis for home drops and billing the company. Since our timings were past midnight, the fares were 1.5 times the regular fare. Since HR insisted that we should be physically present in the office from 10 a.m., after 6 p.m., everyone became entitled to overtime. More than 3 hours overtime drew double pay. Oh, we loved that rule. Plus, if we worked past 8 p.m., company had to provide dinner. Earlier, when we voluntarily changed our shift timings, the team used to get their own meals from home. Now we stopped that. In 1 month, the HR and finance teams figured that it would be cheaper to buy generators. For those who are wondering, other teams changed their delivery timelines to clients taking only 4 days a week as working. We didn't cheat either our clients or the company by working 4 days while being paid for 5. Everyone else used to idle away the day and leave on regular time. Only my team was trying to be diligent. I mean, it's a cool idea to just have to sit around and collect a paycheck, but after a while of just having to sit around and attempt to be diligent, you'd go probably insane. I'm with OP that you would try and find some way to just be productive and challenge this thing, and they did. And our final story of the day is by Wyren. Dock half pay for being 15 minutes late, cue malicious compliance. This happened about a decade ago in my first job. It was an IT/analytic services firm in India. I am from India. While work was interesting, the work hours were insane and folks used to work 12 hours a day usually. Since we always had conference calls with our counterparts sitting in the USA, we ended our workday pretty late. 10 p.m. was my usual time. Due to this, folks used to come into the office late in the morning as well. Usually the entire team would only be in by noon. Management was not happy about this, so they went ahead and decided that everybody had to be in by 10 a.m. And if you are not, they will dock half a day's pay. we were all salaried employees. Usually managers were supposed to enforce this, but they didn't care since they were in the office with teams themselves. But occasionally, HR would stand at the entrance to the office to implement the policy. On one such day, I was 15 minutes late and HR at the gate stopped me and informed me that I will be docked half a day's pay. I stopped for a second, thought about it, and turned back. HR stopped me with a shocked expression and asked, "Where are you going?" I replied, "Back home. See you at lunch," and went back home, ignoring his feeble protest. I actually ended up calling my manager and just took a day off. After this incident, I heard similar such stories from many people, and HR stopped enforcing this policy. Well, I mean, to be fair, if you show up for work and they say, "Nah, you're a couple minutes late, we're going to dock half the day's pay for you," I would want to mail in the first half of the day too. If I'm 15 minutes late, dock me 15 minutes, not half the day's pay. These people are just going to stop being productive altogether for half the day if you're trying to steal that money from them like that. I think it'll do more discouragement than motivation. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.